Hi, thank you for tuning in to watch this video. In this video, we'll be using Bash to navigate through the command line terminal, basically. So Linux is the focus, and we'll just be using basic Bash commands just to navigate through files, create files, delete files, and that sort of thing. Hopefully, the video will be useful for anybody that's new to Bash, or even somebody that's already experienced but been out of practice for some time, or just wanting to refresh their mind, basically. So if we get through the video, on my screen here, I have labs.play, which is simply a free website where you can use you can spin up instances and use use it for practice, basically. So on my screen here, I've created an instance which we're going to use. An instance is simply just a cloud machine somewhere which has been set up for use, basically. It's not connected to any live project or any local. It's not on my local machine, so we can simply play with it, and when we're done with it, we just discard it, come out of it, and then that'll be the end of it, really. So like I said, it's a useful Labs.play is a useful platform where it gives us a free instance. So as you can see on my screen here, I've highlighted the IP address, which is a public IP address, is given me, and also we've got some information for SSH in case we want to connect with an external application into this instance. So if you navigate to the terminal, our instance is spun up, that being the IP address as I mentioned before. So what we can do is currently it is empty. So if we, as common practice, I always run an ls, which stands for list. So all that means is simply return a list of everything that's on this machine that's been configured so far. So as you can see on here, we've got few folders which are set up, but mostly configuration folders, really, as you would find in any PC or any machine. So if we navigate to the root folder here, so all we need to do is we need to run cd, which is chain directory, and then the name of the folder we're trying to access, which is the root. So chain directory to root. As you can see, it did not return with any error, so that shows that it's run successfully. And again, if we run the list command again, and we can see on here inside that root folder, it is empty. There's nothing in there so far. So to begin, we can create a file, and to create a file, we run this command, which is touch followed by the file name. So we can do example file and then the format. So we use a txt text file. So if we hit enter, that has been created. And the way to find out is, again, if we run the ls command, which is list. So list everything in that root folder as it currently stands. And as you can see on here, our text file has been created in that folder. If we try to create a directory, so on this one, if we do mkdir, so it simply stands for make directory, and then we can give the directory a name. So if we do test folder 1, then that directory has been created. So if we run our ls again to see what's in the root folder, we should have two items, basically: the folder we've just created, which is the test folder 1, and the example text file, which are both in there, basically. So currently, in the folder we've created, the folder should be empty. Likewise, the text file should be empty as well. Now, assuming we had content in that text file, we could simply perform two actions, really. We can read it only, or we can edit it. So if we try to read the file, so we can run this command, which is cat, and then the name of the file, including the format. So cat example file. So as we run it now, it's empty, hence nothing really returned for us. So what we can do is if we try to edit this file, so we can run vim command to edit it, and then the name of the file again. So example file.txt, and that should open in a minute now. Okay, so as you can see on here, it's open our file. However, in this state, in this condition, it's still not in an editable mode. So what we can do is if we hit the I key on our keyboard, that should return with this insert message here. So that let us know that our file is in edit mode and we can populate it really. So if we put something simple in here, any random text, just to save time, so we've just put QERTY, QWERTY, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay. So as you can see on here, we've added entries onto our file. We can save our file at this point. So to save our file, we press the escape button on our keyboard, and we do a colon and then WQ. So that should save our file. If we're ready, we hit enter. That should save our file. So now we've got a file which has been populated. What we can do is we can access the file, we can try and read the file, and hopefully we should see our entries which we've just added to the file. So if we run the previous command, which is the cat into that file, that should return with well, our file name is there and the entry or whatever is inside that file has been returned here. So just to recap, the cat command allows us to read what's inside a file, and the vim command allows us to edit the file itself. So that is done. What we can do is let's go back into vim mode to edit the file. Okay, so if we edit the file here, and what we can do is if we press I again and add additional information into the file, so here we can put test 1, 2, 3, right? Now, if we change our mind at this point and we don't want to save the file, we can simply just exit and discard the file, like we would do on a desktop interface, basically, where on that end it would prompt us to say, do you want to save the file? At which point we can say yes or no. But on the CLI or the command line, what we can simply do is we can select the escape button, colon, and then what we can do is we can do Q and then exclamation mark. So what that does is if I hit enter, it returns us back to our root folder where we are. Again, if we then try to read the file, we should see that our last entries have not been saved simply because we did not try to save it. So as you can see on here, we've got our QWERTY 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. So that is, in a nutshell, a very basic navigation through files. So creating a file, reading a file, and editing a file as well. So if we do the command again to print a list, okay, as you can see on here, we've got our file in there and we've got our folder. So the next thing we can do is we can create a new file. So let's do touch 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.txt. So that's the name of our file and then the file format. So that file should be created. And if we run a list command again, we should have 2 files in that folder, in that root folder, and the folder as well. Okay, just like we expected. So at this point, we can perform one action. We can delete one of these files inside the root folder. So to do this is simply RM, which stands for remove, and then we can do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 text. So what we're doing is we're removing or deleting this file that's on our machine inside our root folder. So if we hit enter at this point, that should confirm that it's been deleted. So slight delay on the terminal. Okay, and as we expected, that file has been removed. And as mentioned previously, to check what's inside the root folder, we just print or run the list command, ls command. And now we should be down to just one file and one folder. Okay, just like we expected. One file and one folder. Okay, so we might want to do another action really, which this time around isn't to do with editing or manipulating the file itself, um, but rather what we probably want to do is move the file from one location to another location. So move it from the root folder into the test folder one. So what we can do is we can do an mv, which is move, give the name of our file, which is example file.txt, and then we can give the destination where we are moving the folder to, where we're moving the file to. So if we do test folder one, okay, and what we're trying to do is when we hit the command, it should pick our file and then move it to the test folder one. So you can test this by running this command. We didn't see an error, so that tells me that has worked well. So if we do a list at this point, we're still in the root folder, so it should only return with the folder and not the file, simply because we've moved the file from the root folder into the test folder. So if we do enter at this stage, and as expected, there's only one folder in our root folder. So if we change directory, let's go and verify that our command has worked as expected. So if we do cd test folder one, okay, so that works successfully. As you can see, our instance and then our path, which is where we are, the test folder one. So if we do return everything that's listed in this folder, test folder one, we should see the file which we just moved. So here we go. There's our file, examples.txt. So that's how you move files around. Again, we can remove the file at this stage if we wanted to delete it. And also we can delete the folder itself. However, we cannot delete the folder whilst inside that folder. We would have to navigate backwards to where we've come from or into another folder, and then we can delete it from that point. So as I mentioned just now, navigate backwards. What we can do is if we want to go back into our root folder, right at the minute we are not in our root folder, we are in our test folder. And to navigate back to our root folder, we just simply do change directory and then space and then dot dot. That should then return us to our root folder. So if we select, if we do print a list, it should show our folder name in there. So we are back to where we began in a nutshell. So that is that. Let's go back into the test folder and I'll show you another command. So if we do cd test folder one, we are in that folder. Now we may be lost in these folders as we navigate through the CLI. So a quick case study would be I might get up off my desk and go have coffee, come back and be wondering which folder I'm currently in. So what I can simply do is if I run the pwd, and what it does is it prints the directory which I am currently in. So upon hitting this command, it should tell me the directory that we're in, which is the test folder one. So as you can see on here, so that's the path to where I am at the minute. We initially logged into the root folder, and then in the root folder, we created a test folder one, and that is where we currently are. So that is some of the few commands you can do in the CLI basically with Bash. So if we revert back to the root folder, so here we have our root folder. ls, we only have one folder in here. So if we create a couple of files and maybe a folder at this point, so if we do touch command to create our file, as I mentioned before, and then this time around we can do abcd123 and then .txt. Let's just continue with txt format just for the simplicity. So you create that file in here. In the root folder, we now go at txt file, and then we create another file. So let's just do this time around. So run the touch command again, and maybe continue 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 9, and then 0 at this point. So create that as well. So now if we return a list of what's in the root folder, we should have a couple of files and our test folder 1. So here we go. We have 2 files in here and our test folder 1 as well. So we can copy a file and paste it elsewhere rather than moving the entire file. So to do this, what we can do is we can do cp, which is copy, and then we can do abcd 123.txt, and then we need to give the destination where we are copying this file to. So if we do test folder 1, so picking up this file and then making a copy of it in here whilst leaving this file where it is. We're not fully moving it, we're just making a copy. And if we hit that command, so that should have taken place successfully, and we can verify this by going inside that folder to check. But before we go into that folder, let's run a list of what's inside the current root folder. And again, we should have our 2 text files, text files, and our folder here. So if we do that, there we go. So we have our ABCD 123, and then we have our ABCD all the way up to 0 text files and our folder. But as we've just done, we've copied this file and dropped it in here. So let's just go in here and check that our file had copied as expected. So if we do cd test folder 1, that should take us into our folder. And at this point, if we then do ls to print what's inside there, we can see that the file that we copied has transferred successfully. So that's in a nutshell a few commands which will be regularly used on a daily basis on a CLI, basically, without going into further or more in-depth or more complex commands. Hopefully, this video has been useful if you're watching. And please, as always, share your knowledge, share any shortcuts as to how things can be done. Any feedback is welcome. I'm here to learn. I'm always eager to learn. So I appreciate it. Thank you. Bye-bye.